Qatar has signed an agreement to buy $200 billion worth of Boeing airliners on the second day of Donald Trump's tour of Gulf states. The sale of 160 aircraft is Boeing's biggest ever order. It was one of several defense and technology agreements signed by Trump and Qatar's Emir. The U.S. president is on a 4-day Middle East trip aimed at boosting investment in America. Well, Thani welcomed the warmer relations between the U.S. and Qatar.
We had a couple of hours of great meeting with the president, and we discussed many issues, our great bilateral relationship and also the situation in the region. Of course, I think after signing these documents, we are going to another level of relationship between Qatar and the United States.
We can now bring in Laura Blumenfeld. She's a Middle East analyst at Johns Hopkins University and joins us today from Washington, D.C. Great to see you again, Laura. We just heard there the Emir of Qatar saying that the agreements lifted the relationship between the two countries to a whole new level. What's your assessment? Where do things stand?
Well, this is very significant. This is the first state visit by a U.S. president to Qatar. And it's not just any U.S. president, it's President Trump, who in 2017 accused Qatar of being a state funder of terrorism. So what you have today in 2025 is potentially Air Force One and Hamas being paid for by Qatar once again. So this is a big 360 turn. And I think what it shows just about American foreign policy, we've always tried to balance values and interests. Under this president, what we're looking at is actually what is a good value and self-interest. And by self-interest, I mean, yes, good for America, America first, but also good for Trump, the Trump family, because in addition to these Boeing contracts, there were some $243 billion worth of deals that were signed today. There was also a luxury golf tournament, a golf course and club that was being signed between Trump organization and the Qataris. So again, these are self-interest, America interest. They're all wound up in one inside the man we know as Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Is Trump then seeking to reshape Washington's engagement in the Middle East at all, or is this essentially really just a business trip all about the money?
Well, the new level, I mean, there are three components to that. Yes, some of them are about himself. Unlocking potential is the language that he used. Unlocking potential for his family, but also for the region. I mean, in one sense, he's trying to unlock, number one, investment. Qatar is just flush with cash and they can invest in the United States. That's an important priority. Number two is energy, coordinating pricing with the United States. And finally, number three is stability. There's an unstable region out there. We've got Libya, Sudan, of course, Gaza. And that's bad for business. War is bad for business. Trump is all about, this is his $1 trillion tour. And so they can coordinate and partner with Qatar and the other Gulf partners to create more stability. Trump said in his remarks at the Palace tonight at the state dinner, he said, I'm going to need your help on Iran. And the Emir countered, look, he didn't say it explicitly. He said, we're looking to you to do the right thing for peace in the region. He didn't mention the word Palestine, Gaza, Israel, but we all understood what he meant between the lines. I think what Trump is showing, it's a very American approach. What he's saying is enough of an eye for an eye. The opposite of revenge isn't forgiveness, it's shopping.
How is that viewed in the United States, especially taking into account Qatar's ties to Hamas?
Well, I think there's been mixed reactions, especially in Congress, from Republicans who traditionally have been hard on terrorism, hard on Hamas, hard on Iran, and frankly, hard on Russia. A lot of this, there's a lot of kind of biting of tongues and sort of clenching of teeth from traditional conservatives. But Trump is pushing that aside. He's saying the neocon interventionists of the Republican Party and the liberal internationalists of the Democratic Party were wrong. It's all about transactionalism. It's about a transactional approach. And so folks are hoping, look, the region has suffered tremendously. If that's what will bring people forward to a better day, some folks are open to that. I mean, certainly one thing that we see in this 4-day trip is after the chaos and the rollout of the tariffs, the choreography of this trip has been impressive. At least things are sort of moving along. Yes, there are some surprises, such as lifting sanctions on Syria. Mm-hmm. That's something that was a kind of surprise announcement, but that's a gamble that many are saying is worth taking at this point.
Yeah, Trump will finish his trip to the Middle East tomorrow in Abu Dhabi. more transactions to come?
Yes, indeed. Abu Dhabi, whatever is big in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, they always try to make it even bigger. It's the biggest, the best, the shiniest, and the brightest. Look, all that glitters is gold. That's in the Gulf, and Trump has, pronounced this for Americans a golden era. It's kind of hard in that split screen again, where Trump was asking Americans to take on some austerity in order to improve our economic situation at home in the long run. That kind of split screen, there's two things that are kind of troubling. If you're watching this trip on television, number one is the austerity that he's calling for the United States, and number two are the scenes in Gaza. Both the Palestinians are suffering tremendously, starvation, deprivation, and then the Israelis are under daily strikes from the Houthis, ballistic missiles being shot out of the sky, just missing from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, from north to south. So there certainly isn't peace. But if the road can be paved in bricks of gold, then we're on our way there.
Laura Blumenfeld from Johns Hopkins University, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Giorgio Cafiero is founder and CEO of Gulf State Analytics. That's a risk consulting company in Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
So this has been a whirlwind visit of business deals for U.S. companies that are doing business in the Gulf. But this is also an important visit in terms of the Trump family's financial interests as well. Can you tell us about the Democrats' criticism that Trump is personally benefiting from these ties with these Gulf states?
Yeah, really good to be on your network tonight. When we talk about President Donald Trump, we have to keep in mind that he is known for not necessarily drawing any distinction between the financial interests of his own family and the financial interests of the United States. And Trump, obviously, during his first term, he developed, he grew his business networks in the Gulf region. And then during the 4 years he was out of office during the Biden presidency, he and those around him deepened business links with countries all over the Gulf region. And now as president, he is, of course, continuing to pursue those. He's also focusing a lot on these mega deals that are going to bring many jobs to the United States and greatly increase economic exchanges between some of the major U.S. companies and entities in the Gulf. But, in the process, there's quite a bit of criticism he's receiving. It's totally normal. The media has always focused on these aspects of Trump. The mainstream media has been very critical of Trump over the years. And I think what really symbolizes what many see as blatant corruption is this gift from Qatar, a luxury plane. This raises many points about ethics. It even raises some questions about the legality, the constitutional aspects of this gift. And the media in the United States, many Democratic lawmakers and even some Republican lawmakers are expressing grave concerns and condemning Trump for receiving this gift. I think there are many really important things going on during Trump's historic tour of the Gulf, but this is definitely one of the stories that the mainstream media and many politicians here in Washington are choosing to focus on very closely right now.
Well, let's turn to some of those geopolitical issues, because while the White House message here is that this trip is all about business deals, you can't ignore the fact that the region is in crisis. What is his message to the Gulf leaders on the topics of Gaza and the other big issue of Iran's nuclear program?
Yeah, well, the speech that Trump delivered in Riyadh yesterday, I think will be remembered as a very historic speech. He was emphasizing how he wants his presidency and his leadership to lead to more prosperity and less conflict and chaos in the Middle East. It's a message that sits very well with leaders in the Gulf Arab countries. They want more stability in the neighborhood. They want to focus on their country's economic development, economic diversification. That requires a lot of investment, a lot of trade, a lot of tourism, and all of that requires more peace and stability in the region. So I think Trump's message sits very well with leaders in the GCC. He's also talking about finding a diplomatic solution to the standoff between the U.S. and Iran over Tehran's nuclear program. He wants to bring the US and Iran into a new nuclear deal whereby the Iranians would commit to not developing a nuclear weapon in exchange for sanctions relief and an easing of tensions. This is exactly what the Gulf leaders want now. Of course, 8 years ago, when he paid his first visit to Saudi Arabia, his message was very different. And that was also a time when some countries in the Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia, were taking a very hawkish position toward Iran. But yeah, when it comes to Iran, there's a real, some common cause between Trump and the Saudi leadership in other GCC countries. And when it comes to Gaza, I think Trump wants a ceasefire there too.
Giorgio Cafiero, thanks for your analysis.
Thank you.